Fridays are normally reserved for developer Q&A videos, but M4A1 alerted the content creators this morning that there isn't going to be a dev Q&A this week. Apparently, netties have run out of questions to ignore. As such, we're going to do what some people are referring to as Benzie's new low-effort content, though I would love to see those people try and do it themselves, just to, heck, get some more content creators on the scene, hey? Wouldn't that be fun? But actually, it's, in all seriousness, something that a lot of you folks have been asking for. I did a video a while back looking at some of the new nanocores, and people seem to really enjoy that, asked me to do it again for the next one, so that's what we're going to do. We're going to take a look at the CONCORD Pass, the new nanocores, and the absolute travesty that is the Dark Halo Opt box. Because, yeah, apparently netties just are not allowed to give us nice things anymore. I don't know if it's the developers just trying to be funny, or whether it's the higher-ups just choking the life out of the game. One of those two, but we're going to have a look at things anyway, and I'm going to give this as fair a look as possible. It's what you guys have asked for. Yeah, it may be low-effort content, but screw it, let's jump right in. I'm Captain Benzie. If you enjoy this video, please hit like, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and check out my Patreon and Redbubble merchandise store if you want to go the extra mile to help support me making content. Right, so first of all then, let's actually have a look at the new CONCORD Pass, because there have been some dramatic changes. First thing you may notice as you scroll along the CONCORD Pass is that there are fewer levels now, and if we were to go into the missions, you'll see that the weekly limit is now sitting at 1,500, down from 1,750. So it's a little bit easier to reach the weekly limit. The amount of levels has gone down, but ultimately the rewards do remain the same. I have gone through and had a look at the rewards here. You can see the view all rewards as to what's available, and it's on par with previous CONCORD Passes. Just you don't have to do as many missions now in order to max it out, which, as I said in my little video the other day about this, I personally really like. I think this is a positive change. It's less effort to just complete the CONCORD Pass. You can log in, do what you need to do, and you don't have to really hardcore grind for it. Now, for those of us at the top, I've already seen some people saying, oh, they're making it too easy, like I've never had a problem, and honestly, neither have I. I'm using missions here, like mining planetary materials. I easily cap out the pass every single week. Those points haven't changed, so I'm still going to cap out the pass really quickly this week as well, and that's fine. What it means is that people who aren't necessarily tech level 10 and thus don't have access to be able to get those 2,000 meters cubed of planetary materials, or killing 100 NPCs over and over, or the big bounty ticks for those people can actually still compete and get all of the rewards at lower tech levels, and that's not something I am ever going to disagree with. Ultimately, the missions themselves, as I've re-rolled them, do appear to be exactly the same as previous. Nothing new to write home about there. Skin-wise, it's okay. We've got a Vexor Navy issue Dawn skin. At least it's the Navy issue, which is a ship that does see a decent amount of use, and the Dawn skin is very pretty. Plus the Apocalypse Striker Late Night skin, and of course everyone loves an Apocalypse Striker, so having the one that makes it look like a woman's love toy that sits in her chest of drawers, yeah, I think that's only fair, because if you're flying one of those, you know what you're doing, right? Anyway, so I'm joking. Before you crucify me in the comments section, I'm joking, for the love of God. Anyway, so that's the actual CONCORD Pass itself, and I think that honestly is a really positive change. I like that. But let's have a look at the rewards that you can get from this month. And we're going to ignore this first one here at the top left, because screw it, that's going to take a bit of time for me to talk about. Instead, we have the Imperial Cruiser Logistics, Imperial Battle Cruiser, both versions of the Exile cores. If we tap into these are primarily logistics cores, you can see here, for the 4 main logistics cruisers. So if you do fly logistics ships, these are really good cores for it. Lots of remote shield booster, remote armor repairer, reduction to the capacitor need to run those. And as we look further down the stats as well, you've got inertia modifier and flight velocity. I'd personally go inertia modifier, so you can move that a little bit faster, you know, re-angle a bit faster and get to where you need to be. The actual flight velocity shouldn't matter too much. Again, capacitor reduction and range there for your remote repairers. Your personal shield, your inertia modifier and warp speed is the next one. As we come further down, remote shield booster capacitor reduction and range again as different options depending on which of those you prefer. Then we get the bigger boost amounts, lower capacitor, and shield boosters for yourself as well. Finally, followed by, again, same kind of thing there in the final. It's a fairly boring core. I'm not going to lie, it's a fairly boring core, but it does look really really cool, which I kind of have to give it credit for. I really like the look of the Exile cores. It's a logistics core. It is true a logistics core. You're getting this because you fly a logistics ship, and it's a nano core for those. And if you fly them a lot, then leveling this up can be really quite powerful. Getting additional shield reps, remote shield reps or remote armor reps, having less capacitor usage, those are genuinely nice skills. It's, to me, fairly boring because I'm not huge on logistics. And it's a very straightforward nanocore. There's nothing overly exciting about your choices down here. You just kind of go for the thing that you think is best and just keep going till you hit the bottom. Now, the Imperial Battlecruiser ones are a little bit different. Obviously, again, it's the Drake, Harbinger, Brutix, and Hurricane, which of course are the logistics battlecruisers, but you can actually use these on non-logistics vessels too. If you have the Hurricane prototype or the Hurricane, heck, even the Hurricane Guardian, these can be really interesting cores. Let's go to learn more. So obviously we've got that remote shield booster, which is remote armor on the Harbinger and Brutix version. You'd ignore those unless you're putting it onto the logistics variant of that battlecruiser. But then things like shield booster capacitor need and shield booster mount, those are dedicated to your particular ship. It's not remote shield booster capacitor need, that is personal shield booster capacitor need. So if, like me, you run a particularly tanky Hurricane or Drake or whatever, this is a really interesting core for it. You're going to be sacrificing some DPS, but you are going to have an awful lot of tank. As we go down here, flight velocity and inertia modifier. Inertia modifier is really nice on some of these. Flight velocity on a Hurricane is always good fun. Remote shield booster capacitor need and remote shield booster range. I'm a little bit disappointed that both of these are remote. I do think that we should have gone down the theme of the core and added in a personal shield booster amount in there, or personal shield booster capacitor reduction, because otherwise, if you're using this on anything other than the Hurricane logistics, that is a wasted tier. Shield though, shield, inertia modifier and warp speed, those are all personal ones. Again, we've got another tier of remote there, followed by a more remote but with personal ones as well. Shield booster capacity need and shield booster mount if you want to make for a really tanky personal Hurricane. Again, right at the bottom, it's pretty much the remote except for that shield booster capacitor need. Ultimately, I actually quite like the Hurricane Exile core and the Drake Exile core, the Harbinger and the Brutix. I've run the Harbinger on my personal Harbinger before. I ended up swapping back to Ascension just because I like the DPS. I'm mainly involved in PvE and I'm more than survivable for that. I don't need that extra survivability. But if you are the kind of person who goes PvPing with these kind of ships, that can actually be a really interesting setup. It means you're going to be a lot more survivable, and if you're the kind of person who is running, say, a Harbinger or Hurricane Logistics or Guardian, then again, these are really nice cores because you can set it up so that it boosts your personal ship for when you're a Guardian, and for when it, for the remote shield skills for when you're using it as a logistics. So for someone like Silent Rose, who has just everything trained to fly all variants of Hurricanes, that's really cool because I can use it on the standard Hurricane to make it ridiculously tanky. I can put it on the Hurricane Guardian to make that even more tanky, and I can swap that same nano core to the Hurricane Logistics if I decide to go out in some logistics and give some support that way. Very versatile nano core. I genuinely really like that. Beyond this, we then have finally the Imperial Battlecruiser Exile again here, but this is for the command variant, so the Prophecy, the Ferox, the Myrmidon, and the Cyclone. And again, these are actually really quite cool. If we go into these, you do get missile torpedo damage, you also get a boost to your tank, or to the amount of rep that you get from your shield boosters or armor boosters. It's all personal stuff here. You'll see shield booster, afterburner, warp drive, armor, shield, or structure. This I also really like on a Cyclone. Yeah, most people are going to, shield tank a Cyclone, of course they are, but there are a lot of Minmatar ships that do really well with armor tank as well, and I wish more nanocores gave you those possibilities, particularly on the primary stat here. This does mean that if, for example, I'm not suggesting it's a good idea. Hurricane is a much better option if you want to armor tank, but if you wanted to do a Cyclone armor tank, you could just go for the missile torpedo damage here, and then your first tier, you go into armor, you go into like your afterburner or warp drive, and then into armor down here. Excuse me, clearing my throat there. Obviously, as this goes down further, it's more personal tank and inertia modifier. These aren't the most damaging of cores, but then again, in fairness, if you've ever flown a Cyclone 2 command, you don't need more DPS on that thing. It's already terrifying. Being able to boost up the command bursts a little bit there. You got warp stability, 2 to 5, which is just awesome. Shield field module effective range. shield field? Yes, there is a Cyclone Guardian, isn't there? Of course there is. And missile torpedo damage and shield. Again, highly versatile core. You can use this on a Cyclone, you can use it on a Cyclone Guardian, you can use it on the Cyclone Command variants as well. All three of those ships, this core does work on, so if you are a fan of the Cyclone, the Prophecy, the Ferox, or the Myrmidon, these can be really interesting cores for you. We then have the Ascension cores again, and I'm not going to spend much time talking about these. The Ascension cores are good. They are just flat all-round good. They're not as good as some cores in certain directions. They are not as versatile as some cores, but they are just solid, basic cores that do pretty much everything that you would want a nano core to do. If you want more damage, you can do more damage. You can get a bit more speed out of them, a bit more tank. There's a lot of different variety there. They are just buffs towards, you know, whatever ship you happen to be flying, which means for sort of my first nano core, these are all really solid options. I'm still running the Hurricane Ascension core on my main Hurricane. It is, in my opinion, still the best one that's readily available. Again, Cyclone Ascension core here. Would you use this, or would you use the standard, use the Exile one? That's up to you. Depends if you want tank or if you want a bit more damage and sort of speed. The Ascension's a bit more geared towards sort of your speed side of things, whereas the Exile is a lot more about tank. And this does go all the way up to Faction Battleship. Those are readily available right out of the gate here for the Ascension. So yeah, no complaints this time. The Ascension core is one of those, I just think it is a good core. It's not the best core, but it is a good core. So if you're looking for a nano core for a ship and there is an Ascension core for it, go for it. They are good options. We've still got all the usual stuff like your nano core materials there, the new skill chips for the module invention and stuff like that. But then, of course, we can't finish this off without talking about the Dark Halo Lucky Chest. As I said in yesterday's video, I can't believe they've gone for a sodding loot box on this one. Like, the Dark Halo is such a popular nano core. This is such a popular nano core that a lot of people have been crying to have added back to the store. So I guess when you opened up those patch notes and saw Dark Halo, your heart skipped a beat for a second until the words Lucky Chest followed it, and instead of skipping a beat, your heart just stopped and you died of a myocardial infarction. Ultimately, the box itself isn't terrible. If you look, 1,000 Concord credits, which is, you know, pocket change, the kind of thing that once you've got your nano core, you might decide that you do want some of this. It's a good way to get some of those learning cores. There's a lot of Lazarus units and skill points available in here, and there is the chance at the different Dark Halo cores. Let's have a look at those to start with, because these are genuinely good cores. We've got the Imperial Frigate version here, which gives you your interceptors, and if we open up one of these, for example the Slasher, you'll see this is all about its warp disruption. Obviously, yes, Interdiction Sphere Launcher, people go all the time, why have they put that on it? Because what these cores do, when netties design a nano core and they choose the attributes, they choose basic attributes that are sort of algebraic. So it'll be using the like the Ascension core, for example, it'll be plus main weapon damage, plus main tank, plus main tank repair, and then when you move that onto different ships, it pulls out of the game files and goes, right, okay, we're on a Harbinger, therefore the main weapon is lasers, medium lasers, the main tank is armor, and the main repairer is armor repairer. If you then take that same Ascension core and put it on a Hurricane, oh, now the main weapon is medium cannons, the tank is medium, is shield, and the repairer is shield booster, and it just pulls it in like that. This means that these particular cores, these disruption cores, are basically pulling in those stats, and they will apply to whatever. Obviously, the Interdiction Sphere Launcher disruption field range and disruption field range, those are not for the Slasher. It can't use interdiction spheres of either kind. Those are there because this same core, the basic code for this core, will be pasted onto the other types as well. And oh yeah, you might call that lazy, but again, do you really want netties to waste a whole bunch of development time coding up entirely new nano cores for every single ship? The simple point here is that you want the Warp Disruptor optimal range. That's what this core is about. You don't need to worry about the other two. And of course, the other skills and that on here aren't bad if you're looking for an interceptor to actually intercept. If you're going for PvE or PvP or whatever, like roaming, it's not great, but it's got some nice stats like flight velocity, warp speed, inertia modifier. Again, you get that whole Warp Disruption optimal range. Things like this. They're not terrible cores. If you're looking for an interceptor core, they are the way to go. Under the Imperial Destroyers, again, we've got the same for the Interdictors, so let's have a look at the Thrasher. Again, this time, actually, the Warp Disruptor optimal range might be something you want to use. You might decide that you want longer range points to help you get into range to drop a bubble. That's a valid option. Most people, however, are going to go for the Interdiction Sphere Launcher Disruption Field range, and the rest of it is things like speed and survivability. Not much in the way of DPS there at all. It's purely an Interdiction Nanocore. Very good if you want to be flying an Interdictor. The Imperial Battleship variants, when this opens, again, let's have a look here at the Typhoon. These are really cool cores. These are very popular cores. I wish I'd got the Dark Halo on my Typhoon when I was flying it at the time. I ended up going for a lower grade nanocore and just not having as much fun with it. But ultimately, lots of missile torpedo damage, shield and flight velocity, and that kind of continues down the trick here. The Typhoon Dark Halo core is a really solid core. Honestly, probably one of the better ones out there for the Typhoon. Again, if you're using any of these ships, these are solid options. You've got the Scorpion, the Rock, the Typhoon, the Dominix, and the Armageddon. Interestingly enough, 2 Caldari ones in one, but hey, the Scorpion doesn't get enough love, so hey, good use there. Now, the first disappointment is that the faction ships are not in this. There is no faction frigate, no faction cruiser or faction battleship ones. I mentioned in yesterday's video that both the Dromiel, the Cinnabal, and the Macariel Dark Halo are very popular choices. They are some of the best nanocores for those ships, in my opinion, and in many other people's opinions. Those do not appear on the loot table, and that brings us nicely to our final problem, the loot table itself. You are going to be able to buy up to 60 of these, I think it is. Limited 60 times, and I don't actually see, let me just double check, does this have the whole you're guaranteed in 60? No. You could buy 60 of these. Oh no, there it is. Open to receive a random item from inside within 60 times an Imperial Battleship Dark Halo Nanocore Opt supply is guaranteed. You may open all 60 of these. Buy 60 of these for 60,000 Concord points, which, hey, I've nearly got that spare on Benzie if I really wanted to, you know, get a Typhoon one. That could guarantee I get that for 60,000. That in itself's not bad. But if you're after the Imperial Destroyer or the Imperial Frigate versions, there's no guarantee you'll get those. No guarantee at all. The most likely thing you're going to get is Lazarus units, 50,000 of them, 40.73% chance. Then we've got some Nanocore stuff. Skill points, 10,000 skill points for 16% chance. But the actual ship Nanocore boxes, 0.75% each. Now remember, that doesn't stack. That's a 0.75% chance every time you open this. Big misunderstanding with probability is that, oh, if I get 10 of these, that's a 7.5% chance. No, it's still a 0.75% chance. That's not how probability works. The simple fact here is that if you are looking for that Destroyer or Frigate Dark Halo Nanocore, there's no guarantee you're going to get it. And yeah, you could make the argument that ultimately, if you want to get the Battleship one, 60,000 Concord credits isn't actually that bad all in all. Considering that most battleship ones, like here, the faction battleship for the, okay, it's faction battleship, but, you know, the battleship one here for the Ascension core, that's 52,000 on its own. You're only looking at 7,500 more Concord credits in order to guarantee a Dark Halo battleship core. That's not terrible, and that's just to guarantee it. You might get it in your first box. It's incredibly unlikely. There's literally a 99.25% chance you won't get it in your first box. But if you were to buy 60 of these, there is the possibility that you will get, you know, you're guaranteed to get it at that point, and you might get it ahead of time, which means you could be lucky and only buy 10 of these and get it, or you may still have to spend the full amount. The simple point I want to get at here is, most people would just be happier if that was a Dark Halo box in the store here. Like, you've got here the Faction Frigate Ascension core, 37,500. Make the Dark Halo one the same cost. Put it right there next to it. Same for the Destroyer one. Put that for a similar cost, slightly higher, and then the Battleship one, put it in there at 52,500. You'll get people who will quite happily buy those and just not have to worry about the bloody random chance. Does anyone actually like the random chance? Would you rather, serious question for the comment section here, would you rather just spend 37,500 and guarantee that you're going to get the Frigate box, or 52,500 to guarantee the Battleship one, or would you rather actually just roll the dice every time? Is that more fun for you? I don't know. To me, that's not fun at all, and most people I speak to, that's not fun for them either. But hey, That's how NetEase have chosen to do it yet again, and I can't say I'm overly happy about that. The one concession that I can make is that if you are after that Imperial battleship Nanocores box, then yeah, you're guaranteed to get it within 60,000 credits, and you might get it before that if you're lucky, therefore technically making it cheaper than getting an Ascension core. I don't know. Well, it's not really. Imperial Battleship Ascension costs 41,250, so actually all of what I've just said is completely mathematically incorrect, but there we go. Anyway, folks, let me know your thoughts and opinions on that one in the comment section down below. I genuinely would be interested to know if you would just rather pay for it up front and have the box, or if you prefer to have that 0.75% chance with a guarantee if you spend a whopping 60,000 Concord credits. Let me know your thoughts. Otherwise, folks, thank you for watching right the way through to the end. Happy sailing, and see you all in New Eden.